Mr. Smith, please state your name for the record.
My name is Sidney Smith.
Mr. Smith, did you assault your wife on the evening of November 30th?
No, it was self-defense. She slapped me, and she was about to do it again. And I was afraid she was going to hurt me, so I shoved her. And when I did, the beer bottle came out of my hand and busted on the wall.
Sid, you're bigger than your wife and probably even stronger. Why were you afraid that she was going to hurt you?
I know what she's capable of. She's tough. She's mean. And just last week, she punched some guy out.
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
You may.
Your Honor, I don't see what the problem is. My client is claiming self-defense, and the jury needs to consider that Mr. Smith here is in fear of his safety. So therefore, Mrs. Smith's violence is pertinent under Rule 404. And Rule 405 allows us to bring those certain acts of conduct here into light. Now, we are entitled to show the jury why Mr. Smith feared for his safety, and that includes bringing out prior violent acts of the victim known to him. Mr. Smith, let us approach it this way. How long have you known your wife?
We met when we were both in high school.
And how long have you been married?
Just over 6 years.
And without telling us what your opinion is, do you have an opinion as to whether or not your wife is a violent person?
Yes, I do.
And how do you base your opinion?
Her mom and dad have told me stories. Her friends have told me stories. And I used to hear stories way back in high school. Mac, who already testified, knows all about her, and he's told me some things you wouldn't believe.
Well, what is your opinion as to whether or not your wife is a violent person?
Objection, Your Honor. That foundation is not adequate.
Mr. Smith, have you spoken with other people about whether or not your wife is a violent person?
Yes, I have. In addition to her family, our school friends, and some of the neighbors, I talked to the people she worked with as a waitress.
What is your wife's reputation as to violence?
That she's violent and dangerous.
And what was going through your mind when you were trying to push your wife away?
All I could think of was that she was going to hurt me.
Thank you, Sid. Nothing further.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Smith, let me draw your attention to December 11th, 2011. Do you remember that day?
No.
You were in court that day, weren't you, Mr. Smith? Pleading guilty to the felony of menacing in this very courthouse. Isn't that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. The defendant has not put his character into issue.
Mr. Smith, you have testified that you hit your wife out of self-defense, when in fact there was a time when you admitted to having lost your temper and hitting her in anger.
I'm not sure I know what you're talking about.
Objection, Your Honor. May I approach?
Yes.
Your Honor, I think the prosecutor is trying to introduce statements made by the defendant during plea bargaining. Now, Mr. Smith could have said anything, and as you know, negotiations did not lead to a plea, so therefore anything that Mr. Smith said is inadmissible.
Your Honor, we are not asking to introduce Mr. Smith's statements for the truth of what they assert, but are only asking that they be considered by the jury as inconsistent with his current testimony of self-defense. If Mr. Smith didn't want past statements and plea negotiations brought up, he didn't need to take the stand and testify.
We need to take a close look at the language of 410.